हेलो हेलो लाइव करते करते पढ़ते हैं। चलो सेट हो गया। लैपटॉप सेट है, क्या करा जाए।
Normally you send a result set in the response of the API, right? And there will be possibilities that the data you're sending in is huge or large in number. For example, if you're working with an online library store, there will be like millions of books that the library might be managing. And if you want to send the data about all the books that are available, you can't just send a million book information in a single API, right? It has to be manageable to whoever it is consuming, right? So in that particular case, what you do is you divide this large data set of a million books into smaller manageable chunks. And these chunks are known as pages, and that is why this concept is known as pagination. So it's essentially breaking a lot of information into smaller manageable chunks. Now let me give you an example for this, okay? So if you go to Amazon.com here, okay, and if you search for anything, I'll search for yoga mats, all right? You will see this information coming, okay? You can see like you have lots of yoga mats up here, a lot of products, and you will see any sort of products. This will be true for any search, okay? Now if you come over here, you will see not all products are shown on a single page. You have to navigate between pages, okay? I'm not sure if you're seeing the count of total products over here, okay? So you're seeing like 48 results out of like over 1,000 results, okay, for this particular search. So what this means is it has a lot of results for yoga mats, but it is only showing you the first 48. Okay, it is not showing you all the yoga mats because then it might get very overwhelming. There will be some good amount of time that will be required to render this. Some computational power will also be used. Your data will also be used. So to avoid that, it is sending you data in a manageable chunk, and then you can navigate. You can go to second page, okay, and then you can go to third page and so on. All right. So this is what pagination is. All right. And this is normally implemented in web application. So imagine if you're building a website where you're listing a set of 100 movies, okay, but the website will only show 10 movies at a time, okay, and if you want to see more, you can click next and go to the next page and so on, okay. Now, this is about the concept. How does this concept work in real world, okay? So if you're building an API, there will be a request and response, right, using which it has to be managed, all right? So here, when I loaded the page for the first time, there would be a response in the backend that this particular web page might be receiving, and it is just rendering that data, right? So in terms of request and response, this is what a typical structure would look like, right? You would have all of this information in the response from the server, and whenever you get a response from the server, you would have this information also present in the response, and this information is about the pagination, and it's normally called as pagination method.
हेलो हेलो गाइस, जो नया है लाइक और सब्सक्राइब करो। एंड कहाँ से देख रहे हो आप लोग? कॉर्स क्रॉस रीजन रिक्वेस्ट सिक्योरिटी मैनेजमेंट अक्रॉस the application minimum one domain request resource on a different domain addressee and the same management policy this is the course. Oh, and there is cross origin. Okay, origin method. Application that to handle request from अच्छा, फिर हमने यहाँ ओरिजिन करा इतना पोस्ट क्लास लेवल कंट्रोलर क्लास टू कोर्स। इसका मतलब क्या है? टू एनेबल कोर्स मेथड्स of the application running on one domain to make request to a resource on a different domain running on one domain, okay, by browser by default, and for the same origin policy which restricts these cross origin requests for security reasons. CORS provides a way to relax this policy in a controlled manner. अपने दे दे भाई। हटाओ रे। कौन कौन आया था? चल रहा है क्या नेट? तो हमने सिक्योरिटी फिल्टर चेंज करेंगे तो कॉल्स नहीं कर सकते हैं। सी एस आर यूजिंग डिफॉल्ट कॉन्फ़िगरेशन और सिक्योरिटी। व्हाट इज कॉल्स यूज फॉर? अरे यार कैसे नहीं चल रहा है? अब चल रहा है? हेलो हेलो अटल भाई, हेलो हेलो। ओ भाई चल गया, फाइनली चल तो गया। तो आप भी लाइव है? मैं तो लाइव आके पढ़ रहा था काजल जी। सेटअप देखते, सेटअप क्या ही करना का सेटअप। ये देखो, ये देखो सेटअप चला रहे हैं। कहाँ खुशी यार, टेंशन चल रही है पढ़ाई की। अटल भाई कैसे हो, क्या चल रहा है? क्या बढ़ रहा था? चैट्स? नहीं नहीं, अरे कोडिंग का चल रहा है यार। ये देखो, ये देखो, ये देखो, यहाँ पे कोर्स चल रहा है। हेलो हेलो नीरा जी, हेलो हेलो, कैसे हो आप? लाइव में कौन पढ़ता है? भाई मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, नया तरीका निकाला है कल, पता है इससे ही 5 सब्सक्राइबर आ गए थे। लाइव आके पढ़ाई। पाइथन, पाइथन नहीं है, जावा है। जावा एंड स्प्रिंग बूट है। स्प्रिंग बूट फ्रेमवर्क है, वो पढ़ रहा हूँ। और बताओ नीरा जी कैसे हो? लाइक डन क्या हुआ नेट को? मेरा ख़राब था नेट, लोडिंग ही दिखा रहा है। ओके ओके। बाई टाइम उसमें यूज़ किया है हूँ, थोड़ा मज़ा आता है। क्या बात है, कोडिंग आती है आपको? ओ जावा भी चल रही? हाँ जावा चल रही है ना, स्प्रिंग बूट जावा पर ही है ना, तो उसका कर रहा हूँ। फ्रंट एंड बाद में ट्राई करूँगा। जावा से पीछे तो अब तो आउटडेटेड हो गया है, न्यू तो पाइथन है ना। नहीं जावा चल रहा है अभी भी। पाइथन में फ्रेमवर्क्स नए नए आ रहे हैं, जैसे कि ये डेटा साइंस वगैरह के हो गए, वो सब के फ्रेमवर्क्स बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, तो वो करना बहुत हार्ड है थोड़ा, और उसके कोर्स भी इतनी जल्दी से नहीं मिलेंगे। ये सब्सक्राइब बढ़ रहे, अरे आपके बढ़ रहे कितने थे उस टाइम पे? 130, अभी 140 कुछ हो गए हैं काजल जी। अच्छी हूँ। और बताओ नीरा जी, आपका लंच हो गया? यार मैं अब डिस्टर्ब हो रहा हूँ चैट से। भाई गेम हैक कर सकते हो? नहीं यार, गेम हैक करना थोड़ी ना आता है, कैसी बात कर रहा है? कोडर है, हैकर थोड़ी ना है। हाँ काफ़ी हार्ड था भाई, हाँ हार्ड है यार। पाइथन नॉर्मल सीखना आसान है। ये देखो नजर, तो कॉम्पिटिटर को देखना चाहिए ना, इतनी जल्दी जल्दी बढ़ रहे हैं आपके। ये बंदा योग जगह था सबके सब्सक्राइबर। तुम्हारे भी तो 100 हो गए। अरे यार एक बात बताओ, जब आईडी खुलती है, शॉर्ट्स दिखते हैं, तो मैं कमेंट करता हूँ सबके लिए, ठीक है? तो दिख जाते हैं ना कितने सब्सक्राइबर है। चल में मुझे थोड़ा मोड़ा चलाना आता है। कोई नहीं नॉर्मल करो कोडिंग चैट जीपीटी वगैरह से। सोनी पागल 102, कल तो 101 हो गए थे ना, आज 102 हो गए होंगे। कोई नहीं, पढ़ाई करो ना। कर रहे यार। तो घर पे काम भी चल रहा है ना। और बताओ नीरा जी क्या चल रहा है? मैसेज स्किप हो रहे हैं, सॉरी नीरा जी, मैं थोड़ा इधर भी देख रहा हूँ। enabling CSR स्प्रिंग बूट का मतलब क्या है? enabling बूट यूजिंग स्प्रिंग सिक्योरिटी CSR का मतलब क्या है? Is a type of an attack that tricks an authenticated user into create a malicious website or embeds malicious code and legitimates send a message containing a request for using a application with the malicious protection based on the synchronizer token. अरे यार स्ट्रिंग सिक्योरिटी का पार्ट है तो it's an attack that tricks authenticator ऑन पे हूँ भाई लाइव में पढ़ा इम्पॉसिबल है भाई इम्पॉसिबल तो है हेलो हेलो शिवानी जी वैसे क्या होता है व्यूज़ आने चाहिए ना सही बात है व्यूज़ तो आने चाहिए नज़र हटी थोड़ा काम कर रही हूँ व्यूज़ नहीं होंगे तो 1000 सब्सक्राइबर भी हो गए तो क्या मतलब आयुष अरे आपके व्यूज़ तो अच्छे आ रहे हैं हज़ार तक जा रहे हैं आपके व्यूज़ देखा मैंने अच्छे जा रहे हैं मेरे नहीं जा रहे यार कैसे हो आप मैं बढ़िया शिवानी जी आप बताओ ये वाला तो मेरे ऊपर से निकल गया मेरे 120 सब्सक्राइबर है क्या बात है अटल भाई पढ़ ले और पढ़ने दे खुद तो तुम पढ़ नहीं रही हो हैं बातों में लगी रहती हो लोगों से दिख रहा है तुम कितना पढ़ रही हो हाँ जी शिवानी मेरा लंच हो गया आप बताओ क्या कर रहे हो आप अरे यार मेरी सर के ऊपर क्यों बजा रहा है ये काम करने वाला
data, okay, and this information is presented in the API so that the front-end application, so if you have a front-end application can utilize this information to render it onto the front-end.
होता है मेरा
So let me give you an example. When I say page number 0,
और चैट करने का कितने बजे का टाइम होता है
the front-end would know that hey, the results that I'm getting is of page number 0. Page size is 50, which means like here we have page size of 48 in case of Amazon here, okay. But the example that we are seeing is of 50. Total elements is of 11. Total pages we have only 1, and this is the last page, true or false. Okay, so this is how this information will be added to the API response, and using this API response, the front-end application can render the information in the right way. Okay, and there is normally the concept of parameters and response as well over here. Okay, so let me show you the entire flow and explain you how it works. So whenever you are requesting the first page, okay, what you would do is
you would add
two parameters, or you would add two parameters
करते हैं बात आपसे
normally. So this is the normal case. Okay, so
बॉडी
first
हो
parameter
आप
would be page 1.
देहरादून कब आ रहे हो
Specify the page information and a limit of 10. What this means is you want the data for page 1 and you want to limit it to 10 numbers. Okay, so this would be added in the request that you are sending, and the response that you get is in this way. Okay, so you have the response. So let's assume that we are building a online library catalog that has a variety of books. Okay, so this is what the response would look like. You have JSON response.
सुन रहा हूँ
You
मैं
have
इसकी
first
बात
content tag. Within content tag you have the array. Okay, now what is array? This is the information about
ना
the books.
इतना ही
So you
देख
have
रहा
first
था
two
चैट
books
में
and then 8 more
दिसंबर
books
लास्ट
entries
में
will
हो
come
गया
in over here. Okay, I've just added this as a comment because this is a hypothetical scenario that I'm using to explain you all the concept of pagination. Okay, so you have content. Within content you have the array. Okay, there will be 10 list of books over here. Okay, and then after this you also have some information about the pagination. Okay, so it's telling you that you are on page number 0 right now because this is the first page.
Overacting है
Page size is of 10. Okay, so if you want to display this on the front end that you are seeing 1 to 10 results, like we were seeing here in case of Amazon, 49 to 96 is what you are seeing here. You can show 1 to 10, and total elements is 1000. So the total results that you have in this particular books, okay, this particular book library, it's 1000. So you can display that as well over here.
नहीं सच नहीं बोला
And then over here you have total pages of 100. Okay, so what you can do is you can render
देहरादून
1
यूज
to 100
करती है
patterns.
क्यों
You are seeing 1 to 7. Instead, you can render 1 to 100 because there are 100 pages of size 10, right? And is this the last page? No, it's not the last page. Okay, so you can send this kind of additional information in the API so that front end can have the logic written to render this information. And you can see this is a very good response. In just a single response, you know everything. You have the data that you need along with some information about pagination. Okay?
Scanner
So
लगा
this is
दीजिए
an
मैं
example request for if
पसंद
you
नहीं है
send a
मुझे
request
देहरादून
with
क्यों नहीं पसंद है
page
ये तो
1
बताओ
and limit of 10. If you scroll down, I have the request for page 2 as well. So if you send a request, you'll update the parameter for the next page as page 2, and limit again I'll keep as 10. Okay. Now here you can see category ID is starting from 11, 12, and I have 8 more books for the second page. So this is the second page response, and here you can see page number is 1 now. Page size is still 10. All the other parameters are still the same. Okay, but page number has been updated to 1. You can see. So basis this, the front end is rendered. Okay, and if you see in the case of Amazon as well, you will see page number is being passed. Okay. This is how it's passed. Okay, So if you're wondering how to pass this
गर्मी
information,
तो
this
नहीं
is
है,
passed
इतनी नहीं है
normally
गर्मी.
as a part of the URL. Okay, so you can see in the URL
मुझे
itself,
पहाड़ में
this
ज़्यादा
is an
गर्मी
example
लगी.
URL that I have. Okay, and within the URL itself, this is passed over here. Okay, and you can see over here how this is after question mark. So this is the URL until the controller.
Okay, after the controller. नहीं पहाड़ ठंडा. अरे यार गर्मी के टाइम तो गर्म रहता है ना, टॉप पे रहता है. तो मैं अपने गांव जाता हूँ तो बहुत गर्म रहता है. तो डेटा पैरम 1 पैरम 2 रिक्वेस्ट पैरम स्ट्रिंग वैल्यू स्लैश डेटा के बाद पैरम 1. ओके, मैं कंपनी के इंटरव्यूज़ की तैयारी कर रहा हूँ, जो मैंने अपना करा है ना, जावा बैकएंड डेवलपर हूँ मैं, तो उसी के लिए. आजकल फ्रंट एंड भी मांगते हैं, तो बाद में फ्रंट एंड भी सीखूँगा. तो वही बस अभी प्रोजेक्ट बना रहा हूँ वीडियो देख के थोड़ा. बस हाँ जी, आप बताइए, आप आईटी में क्या कर रही हैं? ठीक है.
After that, you are saying question mark. Okay, and with the question mark, you are specifying the parameter of 1 with the value of 1, and then you have a separator which is AND over here. Okay, and then after the AND process, we are used to separate normally multiple parameters within the URL. Okay, and question mark is generally used to start the query string of the URL. Okay, so you have parameter 1, parameter 2 separated by ampersand over here. Okay, and you are assigning value 1, value 2 over here. Okay, and this is how it will work. And in our example, like the online library, you will have the URL something like this. Okay, so slash books. Until this is the URL pointing to the section of the website. So here I am calling the books controller. Okay, and then I have the additional information regarding the page and the number of books that I wish to have in a single query. Okay, and then I'll get a response that looks something like this over here. Okay, and you can see how this is divided. Like you have key and then the value. Okay, you have key and the value. You have key again and the value. So value and key are separated by colon over here. Okay, so your content is the key and value is in the form of an array. Okay,
अभी तो बारिश हो रही है.
contains the next set of books that
मस्त ठंडा ठंडा हो रहा है यहाँ तो.
with each book detailed by
अब तो
its
ठंडा हो
title,
जाएगा.
author, and so on. Okay, and this is like the second batch that you are getting because you're requesting page 2. Okay, so this is how pagination works, and I hope this makes sense. This concept is really helpful, or I should say useful, because data is growing a lot, right? So you as an individual, if you're using Instagram, Facebook, you create so many posts, you have such a long feed, right? So it's important that you paginate everything, okay? And you don't load anything at once. So if you try to load everything at once, user might only be interested in the top 10 results, right? But if you're loading all the 1,000 results, it's like waste of processing power, waste of data, waste of network activity, waste of server computing resources, and all, right? Even database computing resources, all that is wasted. So it's best to paginate things because smaller chunks are normally manageable, okay? And that's about the concept, and I hope you have some clarity about this, and I hope this was useful. It's time that we talk about pagination in our project and how it will work.
इसकी आवाज आ रही है या
we know
मेरी इसकी आवाज?
pagination as a concept, but right now in our e-commerce application we have something called as category. Okay, so we are storing category this way. We have a couple of fields like category ID and category name over here, right? And what is happening right now is we are seeing this kind of a response, right? So if you try to get all the categories, you see category ID, category name.
समझ आ रहा है कुछ?
Okay. How are we getting this response? So we are getting this response via the model. Okay, this model is being translated into the response. But if you come over here, okay, this is what the response we would need into our application to implement pagination. Okay, so first of all, we need to add something called as pagination metadata. So if you go over here at the bottom, okay, so in this notepad, you can see like I have this sample JSON structure, and at the bottom you see this metadata being added. Okay, and this is data about pagination, like page number, page size, total elements, total pages, and last page. Okay. This is a standard, but of course this is customizable as per your application requirements. Okay, So we would need this kind of pagination metadata to be added into the JSON response. Okay. And what is happening right now is, so right now we are just sending this data at all. Okay. Finally, this we need this entire array we need within this content key. Okay. But right now, if you take a look at our response, we have this array coming in as the response. So this is the only thing that we are getting right now. And how is this happening? So right now, what is happening is whenever you are sending in an API
Thank
request,
you for joining.
Our controller is intercepting this request, right? So this is the API request that controller is intercepting. Then it is talking to the service over here, and it is getting the list of all the categories, and it is giving you that list as the response over here.
तू क्यों आ गया नल्ले इधर?
So this controller is working with the service,
bye
and
bye.
what is service doing? How is it getting that information? It is getting from the
repository,
repository, which is making use of this model over here. Okay. So that's what is happening as of now. Okay, and right now the repository is directly getting the data and it is returning it directly from the controller.
नया तरीका निकाला है मैं भी पढ़ रहा हूँ.
The object that is returned is directly converted into JSON. Okay, so here we are returning an object.
Right?
It's of type list over here. Right. So this object is being returned and it is directly being converted into JSON format in Postman using something called as Jackson. Okay. Now, if you're not aware of Jackson and if you're hearing this for the first time, I'll just explain a little bit. So Jackson, if you come over here to external libraries in your project, you'll see something called as Jackson over here. You can see Jackson.
कुछ नहीं, प्रोजेक्ट बना रहा था, थोड़ा साथ साथ पढ़ रहा हूँ. तो प्रोजेक्ट भी बन रहा है, साथ साथ पढ़ भी रहा हूँ. आप बताओ क्या कर रहे हो? मैंने कहा पढ़ते पढ़ते लाइव आ जाते हैं, क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है?
Cool. So Jackson is nothing but it's a Java library that is used for JSON deserialization and serialization. So what it does is it converts objects into JSON type and JSON.
ये नहीं पढ़ा होगा आपने कॉलेज में. दिखाता हूँ. देखो ये चीज़ नहीं पढ़ी होगी आपने. ये होती है रियल टाइम वर्किंग. हम भी पढ़ाई करते हैं, अब जोश आ गया. सही बात है, आप भी पढ़ाई करो. आपके पास तो अच्छा है, फेसलेस टाइप करते हो. ये देखो, ये रहता है जो ऑफिस टाइप में कोड होता है ना आयुषा जी, ये वैसा रहता है. फिर अगर हम पोस्टमैन में जाएंगे तो पोस्टमैन में हम यहाँ से रिक्वेस्ट भेज सकते हैं. फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल जैसे कि ये गेट रिक्वेस्ट है, तो मैं यहाँ पे गेट करूँगा तो अभी तो खाली आ रहा है. एक सेकेंड. हाँ, अभी तो इंटरनल सर्वर एरर दिखा रहा है. इसमें मैंने कुछ चेंजेस करे क्या? लेट मी रीरन इट. कल किया था फेस वाला. मेरे को क्या पढ़ाया कुछ याद ही नहीं है. ये पढ़ाया नहीं होगा ना. इसमें क्या रन हो रहा है? स्टार्टेड तो दिखा रहा है. मैंने कुछ छेड़खानी कर दी क्या इसमें? हाँ, अब ये देखो, जैसे हमने गेट ऑल करा तो नो कैटेगरीज क्रिएटेड टिल नाउ आ गया. अब मैं यहाँ जाऊँगा क्रिएट अ न्यू कैटेगरी में, फिर यहाँ वैल्यू डली पड़ी है तो यहाँ डालूँगा तो आ जाएगा कैटेगरी क्रिएटेड. जॉब मिल गई? नहीं यार नहीं, अभी तो कहाँ, इंटरव्यू है भाई मेरे. पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ अभी. सिक्योरिटी वगैरह वाली चीज़ें पढ़नी है मेरे को. इतना जल्दी कहाँ यार, आसान नहीं है. गैप और ये लो एक्सपीरियंस की वजह से टाइम लगेगा थोड़ा. देखते हैं, तब तक अपने प्रोजेक्ट बना लेते हैं हम थोड़े से. आपके क्या प्लान्स हैं?
Into object type. So to and fro. That is what it's being used for. Okay. And Jackson is the name of the library, and we have it added in our dependencies. Okay, so it's coming in with the web dependency that we have added.
And
it's Java, this library, Jackson. It's being used widely in web applications like frameworks to handle JSON data effectively and efficiently, because JSON is standard nowadays, right? Now, if you are adding a new field, let's say you have a scenario, okay. So let's say you add a field called description. Okay. Now what is happening is you are creating a list of categories and you are returning that. So what would happen is if you have added description over here in the model or in the entity class, description will also appear over here in the response. Okay. And this is being done without any additional configuration. Okay. So that's the thing right now. But what would happen is it's really important, like if you're building a full-fledged production grade
यहाँ तो हो रही है, मस्त ठंडा हो गया यहाँ पे.
Keep different parts of your application focus on a specific task. Okay. So right now in our application, our entities should be focused on how data is structured and stored in the database. But this should not dictate how the data is presented to the end user, right? As long as entities are representing the data structure and how it's being represented in the database, that's fine. But if they're also dictating how it's being represented to the user in the presentation layer, it's a little bit problem, right? So you would need a little bit of separation of concerns over here, okay? Where you wish to have control over how data is being represented in the postman or to the end user via the API, okay? Because this is what is going to be consumed by the front-end application. So tomorrow, if you want to make any customization over here, if you want to add a parameter over here, as per the requirement, let's say front-end team comes to you and you're a back-end developer, they tell you, hey, add a parameter to the API. So you will have to test the model, right? And if you test the model, the database structure also changes. But that is not what you want it to happen. You just want the parameter in the UI only, like not in UI, but in the API only, so that it can be consumed by the front end displayed in the UI, right? But you don't want database to change, right? So a separation of concern is needed over here because we don't want the model or the entity to dictate how the response is being generated and what is Now, if I have to give you one more example, let's say I have a user class and it has a field called password. By default, password will be shown as the JSON response, but I don't want to show password. How can I control that? I want to show some other parameter without changing the database numbers, right? So this is where the concept of custom responses come into picture. Okay. Now this is important because as your application scales, you have you might need different ways to present the data that you don't think of initially. And if your presentation logic, like I said, is tied up with your database model, making changes can become messy and difficult. Okay. So by keeping them separate, you can easily adjust how you present data without having to change your underlying database structure. And this separation would make your application much more scalable and easier to maintain. Remember this. Okay. So how do you properly send data from our server to clients? So you can make use of custom responses, not a custom response.
हाथ पे क्या लगाया? अरे मेरा हाथ ना वो साइलेंसर से जल गया था, तो वो नहीं होता रोटी को जला के लगाते हैं, तो वो लगा रखा मैंने कि उससे ना ये जले हुए का थोड़ा फ़र्क पड़ जाता है, मतलब से फूलता नहीं है, तो वो लगा रखा मैंने. साइलेंसर से हाथ जल गया था ना, तो वही बस.
Okay. Now custom responses is like a package of data that you create specifically for your end users. If your end users here are the users who are consuming the APIs. Okay? It can be yourself also. If you're building the front end yourself, you are the user of your own API, right? So it's best to have custom responses, and you can include things that you want the end user to see. Okay? Like the pagination data that we spoke about. Okay? Okay? So if you want to include the pagination data, pagination metadata, you don't want this
अरे टाइम हो गया. हेलो हेलो एमडी. अरे थैंक यू आयुष जी. हो गया टाइम, अभी तो 3-4 दिन हो गए.
Concept of custom objects or custom responses come into picture, and this is that by a concept called deep hooks. Okay, so it's called deep hooks. So let me write it. Hooks. Okay, and this stands for data transfer objects. Okay, so I can say data transfer objects. Okay, now what are DTOs?
ठीक है भाई, कर दूंगा पक्का. थोड़ी देर रुक जाओ, टीम पे कर दूंगा फिर. अभी तो मैंने अपना वाला पिन कर रखा ना, कर दूंगा.
With the concept of DTOs, okay, and DTOs have lots of benefits. They allow you to tailor the data. Okay, so if you don't want to display a specific thing in the API as a response, you can control that via DTOs. Okay, you can hide any sort of details or any sort of parameter, any parameter that holds sensitive information. You can hide that from the response using DTOs. You have a lot of flexibility in the presentation layer then because you have separated model from the response that the user is getting. Okay, and this gives you a lot of benefits, like you have separation of concerns, you have scalability and flexibility also time. So a lot of things.
आप कमेंट कर दो शॉर्ट में, मैं आपको रिटर्न कर दूंगा.
Okay, so we'll be taking use of DTOs and I hope
कोई भी लेटेस्ट शॉर्ट में कमेंट कर देना.
And what is happening right now in our application. So this is important. You should understand first what is happening right now and why this is not good. Okay, so you understood why this is not good, right? We have the presentation layer tied up with the model right now, and if you want to make any custom changes in the responses, you cannot do that because you'll have to change your model, and if you change your model, your database structure changes. Okay, so there's a need for decoupling, and this is where DTOs come into picture. So see, DTOs everyone will explain you on the internet, but why this is needed? What is the scenario?
अभी करा आपने कमेंट, मैंने देखा नहीं होगा यार, सॉरी.
Okay, you need a custom response.
देख लूँगा कि आईडी देख लेता हूँ.
But you cannot do that without touching your model, right? And this is where DTOs become important. Okay, Normally,
आपकी आईडी शो क्यों
I
हो
see
रही है
like
रैंक में?
articles on the internet which just explain the concept of DTO.
अभी
But
लेटेस्ट
just
वाली में आप
doing
कमेंट कर दो, मैं
scenario
देख
wise
लूँगा, रिटर्न
helps
कर दूँगा फिर
will help
आपको.
you grasp this concept even better. Okay, so you should know why you're doing a particular thing rather than what a particular thing is. Okay, so why here is really important. Okay, so I hope you are clear with the why, and I hope you know why we'll be making use of DTOs and why such concept exists.
DTO पैटर्न.
So it's time.
इसको मेल का रिप्लाई कर देते हैं. ओह, इसने कुछ भेजा है मुझे. एंड ओके थैंक्स भाई, मैं कर दूंगा बैक. हेलो हेलो साक्षी, बहुत टाइम बाद. कहाँ बिजी हो? आ गए घर? स्टॉप पे जाके स्क्रीन कर दो. ठीक है, मैं तो कर देता हूँ. हाँ यार, थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ रहा हूँ. कौन सा टॉपिक पढ़ रहा यार? अभी तो मैं प्रोजेक्ट बना रहा था, एक दोस्त से मैंने लिया था, तो वही देख रहा हूँ. व्हाट द हेल, ये क्या है? रो मैपर. तो बाद में पढ़ेंगे. मैंने अभी दिया था एक बीच में दिया था एक इंटरव्यू. उसके होने हैं अभी राउंड, 2-3 राउंड होने हैं. 2 राउंड होंगे शायद. तो वही बस रिवीजन कर रहा हूँ. अभी तो बेसिक ही क्वेश्चन पूछे थे. तो एक दोस्त से मैंने कोर्स लिया था ना, उसका प्रोजेक्ट बना रहा हूँ. उसमें है फ्रंट एंड भी है, बट फ्रंट एंड पे इतना नहीं जा रहा हूँ मैं. अभी बैक एंड ही कंप्लीट करूँगा.
DTO pattern and understand how it works. So DTO pattern is a pattern that is used to transfer data between software application systems. Okay, and in the context of APIs, DTOs can be very useful to design the structure of data that you want to expose over the API. And
यार कंपनी नहीं पता मेरे को कॉल आया था, तो उसका वही था कि क्लाइंट को मतलब डेवलपर चाहिए थे, तो मैंने दे दिया बस अभी फ़िलहाल. अभी वो तो 2-3 राउंड जब क्लियर होंगे मेरे, तब देखते हैं. नेटवर्क इशू है. अरे कोई नहीं, कल बाद में करेंगे आराम से बात इस बारे में.
using DTOs, you can easily avoid problems
सबको
like
क्या ही बताना है
getting
इधर,
changed
बाद में
if
देखते
there's
हैं.
any change in the presentation layer. Okay. Now, what are DTOs? So, under the hood, DTOs are simple Java classes that represent a subset of your domain model.
भाई मैं
And
देहरादून
domain
से
model
हूँ.
means the
एम डी
model that
भाई,
you have
आप कहाँ
defined
से
in
हो?
your application or the entity classes. So, they represent a subset or they might have some more information. And these are specifically designed for transferring data between different components or services. Okay. And these DTO classes are lightweight representations of functional objects, and they are, like I said, tailored specifically for responses like data transfer. Okay. Now, by using DTO, you can retrieve the necessary data independently. Okay. And this is what the entire process looks like. So you have the category model, okay, which is, or the category entity, I should say. Then you have the data transfer object. So data transfer object, like I said, is a simple Java class. It's a simple Java
मेघालय
object.
से? अरे नाइस यार.
Class. And you can call
मेघालय
this
तो
as
बड़ा
a
मस्त
Pojo
है
as
यार.
well. Okay, it's a simple Pojo, and then this is being translated into JSON with the help of Jackson,
क्या
which is
करते
a
हो आप
library
ऐसे?
that is used to convert or map JSON between objects. Okay, so this is how the process will
काम
work,
कर रही है.
and if you have to see the entire process, okay, then here's how the process looks like. So you have a client that is requesting something, you have a server that is providing something.
साक्षी करते हैं बात इंटरव्यूज के लिए. मेरे को भी चाहिए यार.
Request, okay, and it also receives the responses. For now, we'll start with the request. Okay, and it requests using the DTO format. Okay, And what happens is server. Normally, the server will have a controller layer that will handle the incoming and outgoing
मैं छोटा
requests and
मोटा जॉब
responses.
करता हूँ. ओके,
And
क्या
we
क्या
will
जॉब
use
करते हो आप?
DTOs to define the data structure for requests and
जॉब छोटा
responses.
मोटा
Right?
नहीं होता यार, अच्छा है
And
जॉब करना.
what will happen is server will convert this particular DTO into an ATO. Alright, so that it can work on it and it can do the operation that the client has requested for. Okay, the client over here can be anything. Like it can be a web browser, it can be a mobile app, it can be a tool like Postman. Like we are making use of
पढ़ाई करो तो नींद आती है.
Postman, right? So client can be anything. So it requests DTO, server will convert DTO into an entity, and then the server will get the desired data from the database. Okay, it will talk to the database, it will get the desired data, and then the database will return the data to the server. Okay, then the data that is received is in the form of entity, right? It's in the form of model that we have given. So this entity is then converted into DTO because we need to send this data to the client. So this conversion happens and then the response is sent in DTO form to the client. So this
Sound
is the
system.
as to how
Nice.
this entire process works. Okay, so there's a conversion on the server from DTO to entity and the entity to DTO so that you can balance out things between the presentation layer as well as the data layer. Okay, so this is DTO pattern for you all, and I hope this was useful.
Why DTO classes is necessary? Question. Why DTO classes are necessary in Spring Boot? Classes are हेलो हेलो क्रिस भाई, कैसे हो यार? कहाँ गायब थे? क्या चल रही है लाइफ बाइक? अरे यार, डीटीओ क्लासेस का तो क्वेश्चन ही नहीं है. कैसे हो ब्रो आप? डीटीओ क्लासेस Spring Boot addresses several reasons, performing resolving a situation of concern. API container decoupling. DTO bridge between the incoming domain and the external API. This decouples the primitive from the persistent layer. Change to your database entries. You don't really import your database. You are using DTO or DTO security. Yes, there should be not be a force. बस सब बढ़िया. कुछ टाइम के लिए बिजी था, सोशल मीडिया से दूरी बना रखा था. ओके ओके, कैसी जा रही है लाइफ भाई? This can improve performance. Deeper. Good example. User entity. User है. No DTO approach. Security performance over IPO insufficient. Is also change. और बताऊँ सब बढ़िया. मैं प्रतीक भाई बाकी लोग कैसे हैं? बस भाई सब बढ़िया यार. मैं तो बहुत कम आता हूँ आजकल लाइव. प्रतीक भाई भी अपने ट्रेडिंग में बिज़ी हैं आजकल, और बाकी लोग भी अपना यार लाइफ में बिज़ी हैं. मैं आजकल बहुत कम लाइव आता हूँ यार. आजकल थोड़ा जॉब का प्रेशर हो गया है, तो वही निकालनी है पहले मेरे को. क्रिएटिंग अ DTO. to expose to the client a Java recursion model. Okay. Then implement a mapper. GPU user then okay. Got it. समझ गया क्या करना चाह रहा है ये.
To decline. So this conversion happens
अगले
and
बार
then
मिलते
the
हैं
response
फिर
is sent
कभी किसी और लाइन में.
in
ठीक है
video
भाई
form to
मिलते
the
हैं
client.
ब्रो
So this is
मिलते
the
हैं.
entire flow as to how this entire process
करेंगे बात यार फ्री
okay,
होके
so there's
थोड़ा
a
आराम से.
conversion on the server from DTO to entity and the entity to DTO so that it can balance out things between the presentation layer as well as the data layer. Okay. So
लाइक
this
करके
is
जाना
DTO
यार
pattern for you
अगर लाइक
and
नहीं
I
किया अभी
hope
तक तो.
this was useful.
ये थोड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट वीडियो है इसे देख लो.
Have a package introduced, okay, and I can call this package. So now it's time that we go ahead with implementing the TTO pattern into our project. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to our project structure, and under com.ecommerce.project, I'm going to have a package introduced, okay, and I can call this package as a payload package, okay. So I can say over here, this is payload, and this is going to have all the request response objects, all right. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is we will have two separate classes over here in our project, okay? And these two classes, one will be representing the request object and other one will be representing the response. So we'll have a clear separation of concerns over here, okay? So I'll say category, okay, TTO, and this is going to be the request object, okay? And then we are going to have one more, which is category, and I'm going to say response, okay? So category TTO is the request object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some fields over here. So I'm going to say private, and I'm going to say long, and I'm going to say category ID. All right, and then I'm going to have private string category name, something like this. Okay, so this is done. And what I need to do is I'll need some constructors over here. I'm going to make use of Lombok. So I'll say data. And I'm going to have no args constructor. So these are all getters, setters, and constructors that I'm generating all args constructor. Okay. So this is done. All right. We have a very simple category DTO, and we are also going to need a response object over here. Okay. So what is the response object? So here we're going to say private, and I can say list. So this response object is going to have the list of categories. So I can say category, and we can have DT over here. Okay. Okay. So this needs to be caps. Okay. Something like this, and then over here content like this. Okay. And over here I can say data, and I'll have no args constructor, all args constructor. Okay. So this is done. Okay, we have the category response as well as the category DTO created. So now, since we have updated this, what we need to do is we need no args.
टेस्ट तो हो गया.
Constructor, all args constructor. Okay. So this is done. Okay, we have the category response as well as the category DTO created. So now, since we have updated this, what we need to do is we need to get our service updated as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to service over here in the category service, and over here, what I can do is I can like update the return type over here. Okay, so here getting the list of category over here, right? So what I can do is I can say instead of list of category, so if you come over here, okay, you need to return the category response. Okay, so what I can do is I can say category response, something like this. Okay, and we also need to update this in the implementation. So if you head over to the implementation now, let me see over here. So here I need to update the implementation as well. Okay. So what I can do is I can say category and I can say response over here. Okay. So now this is done. Okay. Let me see over here. So here I need to update the implementation as well.
Category response.
Okay. So what I can do is I can say category and I can say response over here. Okay. So now this is done. Okay. So I'll tell you we are getting an error now. Okay. So the error is we are returning the list of category, but the required type is of category response over here. Okay. So and this is because like we are fetching the list of category from find all. So this transition or the conversion of the list of category needs to happen into the category response object over here. So if you see the category response over here, wait a minute, so let me go inside this class. It has the list of category DTO. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to get the category DTOs first. Okay. And then we need to make a list out of it, and then we need to convert that into category response object over here. Okay. And if you have to talk a little bit about category DTO and category responses, so these two classes serve different purposes. Okay. So category DTO is used to encapsulate and transfer data related to categories from client to server. So if you want to transfer any data related to category, you will make use of category DTO. Okay, so earlier we were simply making use of category model, right? This model we were using. Where is the model? Okay, repository, I'll close API exception. We'll close all of this. Okay, I don't see model over here. So there is this model class.
भाई लास्ट ईयर से तो मैं पुणे, चेन्नई, देहरादून 3 जगह घूम रहा हूँ और उसके बाद प्रॉपर स्लीप नहीं लेना, स्ट्रेस लेना, तो भाई उसकी वजह से। बाकी भाई एज भी तो हो गई है, थोड़े बहुत तो एज की वजह से भी होंगे, बट हाँ पानी फैक्टर बहुत करता है। पानी और स्ट्रेस, ये 2 चीज़ें बहुत फैक्टर करती है यार। और बाहर रह के तो यार प्रॉपर डाइट वाला खाना तो मिलता है नहीं, वही पीजी का खाना, तो कैसे ही तुम्हें प्रॉपर न्यूट्रिशन मिलेंगे।
Which we were using to change anything. So if we want to create a category over here, so if I want to create a category, I will be making use of this model over here, and this was being mapped to model. Okay, and we still have the code for that. Okay, so if you come over here, create category, right? So you can see here it was a category model over here, right? So request body was being mapped to category model, and if there are any change in if there is any change in the model, well, this will also be impacted, right? And we wanted to decouple this. So we introduced category DTO, which is like a model, but it's actually not a model. It is representing category at the presentation layer, right? So whenever you want to create a category or do anything, you'll be sending the object in this particular form, okay? And you have a better control of how you want to represent this at presentation layer. And then, so this is the category data, all right? If you want to encapsulate, transfer anything related to category, you will make use of category DTO rather than category model. And then you're making use of this DTO to create a response over here. So, for example, if you want to send the list of categories, what you would normally do is you will have the category model over here, right? But we wanted to decouple the model and the presentation. So instead of category model, we are making use of category DTO over here. So I hope this is making sense, okay? This is what the two classes will help us with, okay? And we are getting an error over here as well in the controller, and we are getting an error over here in the service implementation as well. So I'll just close this here in the service implementation, okay? And we'll have to fix this error, but for now I'll leave this error as it is because we need to transition or convert the object from one form to another, and we'll do this in a better way. All right, so for now we leave this error over here. We are aware of this error, but I hope you have some clarity as to why we created these two classes. So right now, we are getting an error over here because we are trying to return the list of categories. To get rid of this error, what we need to do is we have the list of categories, right? So we should be returning a category response object which has the list of category DTOs. So essentially, if we have the list of category DTOs instead of